Hello, my pre-calculus student. In this video, we are going to talk about the imaginary and complex number. As we all know that square roots of negative numbers have no real solutions. Imaginary numbers were invented so that negative numbers would have square root. We are going to use I equals square root of -1. Now let's go back to the Venn diagram. At the beginning of school, we know that the smallest set of number will be the set of natural numbers, and we say that the real numbers is the biggest set of number that we have learned so far since algebra 1. Now we move on to a new set of number that's bigger than the set of real numbers, will be the complex number system. It makes up of the real part and the imaginary part. So let's go ahead and practice to express each one of the square roots of negative numbers in terms of imaginary numbers. Such as if we have square roots of -5, the first thing we are going to do under the square root, the negative numbers, we are going to write them as a product of -1 times a positive number. In this case, it will be -1 times 5. And then we are go ahead and break of factor. So we break the square root of -5 into square root of -1 times square root of 5. Now we know the square root of -1, as we assign the letter I for imaginary. So we end up with I times square root of 5. And you look at the next example, we have negative square root of -7. Now don't forget that the -1 in front of your square root will stay the same. Inside the square root you have -7. You can write them as two factors, -1 times +7. Then you'll be able to write the square root of the product at the product of the square root of each one of the factor inside. So in this case, the negative outside square root stay the same, but now you end up with square root of -1 times square root of 7. Since we know square root of -1 is I, so in this case it's -I times square root of 7. Now look at the next example. We have square root of -99. Again, step 1, we are going to write the negative numbers as a product of -1 times positive numbers. Then we are going to go ahead and write the products, the square root of the product at a square root of each factor of that product. So in this case, we have square root of -1 times square root of 99. Now we know that square root of -1 is I. Now we look at the next square root. We have square root of 99. Now since 99, we can write them as a factor of 3 times 11. Since we know that square root of 3 square is 3, so therefore we can go ahead and factor the 3. Take the square root of 9 is 3, so therefore we end up with 3i. And under the square root, now we only have 11. So that's why you can see right here our final answer after we simplify will be 3i times square root of 11. Let's look at the next example. So now we are going to multiply two imaginary numbers. So we have 47i times 2. So when you multiply, you will multiply the real number with the real number and the imaginary with the imaginary. So right here we only have one part of the imaginary, the I, so the I just stay. So we take 47 times 2 will give you 94, and then just bring the I along. So we have 94, I will be the product. Let's look at the next example. So we have 2i times square root of -5. So the first step we are going to do that we are going to go ahead and keep 2i stay the same, and the square root of -5 we write them as the product of square root of -1 times 5. And we know that square root of -1 is I, so therefore we can write them as 2i times I square root of 5. Now 2i times I will give us I to the power 2. So we have 2i squared times square root of 5. Now as we all know that I is square root of -1. So if we square the left side and the right side in this equation, so I squared will be equal -1. So that's why right here we will have I squared, and we know that I squared is -1, so that's why we end up with 2 times -1, which is -2, and then we'll bring the square root of 5. So it means -2 times square root of 5. Okay, let's look at the next example. Here we have negative square root of -3 times square root of -7. So again, let's do a little bit faster. The negative outside of the square root stay the same. Now square root of -3, as we all know that we can write them as the product of square root of -1 times 3. Now square root of -1 is I, so therefore we can write them as I times square root of 3 for the square root of -3. And square root of -7 we can write them as I square root of 7. The next step we are going to do that we will multiply I with I, so we end up with negative I squared, and then we multiply the square root of 3 and square root of 7. When we multiply two square roots, we'll be able to multiply the number under the square root, so therefore 3 times 7 is 21. So we have square root of 21. Now we all know that I squared is -1, so therefore you will write the negative side outside I is stay the same, so we have negative of -1 times square root of 21. So since we have negative times negative will be positive, so our final product will be square root of 21. This will be the conclusion for, or the end for this video. Please write out your summary. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.